Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this session. Today, I am joined by the great Russell Nohelty. Russell, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
It's absolutely great to have you, and especially as a return guest. Now, Russell is a USA Today bestselling fantasy author who has written dozens of novels and graphic novels, and most recently is the co-host of the Kickstart Your Book Sales podcast, is the co-founder of the Writer MBA Training Academy, and co-founder of the Future of Publishing Mastermind, which we might talk a little bit about later. But he also co-created the author ecosystem archetype system. So this is to help authors thrive. And I'm going to dive deep into what the author ecosystem is and how we can best use it. I will have links to everything below the video or in some place close to the video. I know there's a quiz as well. So why don't we just start very, very big picture kind of view and what is an author ecosystem?
Sure. So probably is the best to start sort of with a brief history. So most courses don't work. Just like I want to put that out there before, like most courses don't work for most people before I bring the rest of it. Like, in fact, what I'm going to say actually is a pretty hot, like it's pretty good when like 20% of people overperform and 20% of people like actually launch, and like basically half the people actually take the course and launch. I say that because what we saw, we have a training academy, Writer MBA, and we have a course called the Author Ecosystem, and we have another one called the Direct Sales Accelerator, and we have one called Go Wide, Grow Wide. So we have three main courses and then about a dozen supporting courses. And we spent 2022 launching these courses and getting hundreds of people. Like we had a very good year in 2022, but it burned us out. And a combination of that, and then looking back at the data, and especially starting in the beginning of 2023, saying, I don't understand it. There's people that have like 100-person mailing list and are just destroying Kickstarter. Like they're making 10 grand. Like it's obscene. And then there are people that like make seven figures and make like $500 or $600 on Kickstarter. And like that is equally obscene. And then there's like half of the people that really just either started taking it or didn't take it. But we've had about 150 now launches in the Kickstarter accelerator. What we started to see is why. You wanted to know why. Like I've been told that basically 95% of people, when they start courses, never finish it, or when they buy courses, never start it. And like, that's not good enough for us. Like we don't like, I'm not happy when only 5% of people take a course that like we put out. And I definitely don't like that half of the people just either weren't launching or underperforming. And a lot of people were doing well. So like, it's just like of the people that launched, about half of them overperformed, half of them underperformed, and then half of them did about what we would expect. And we started really questioning why. I don't know if how well you know Monica, but Monica loves data. Like she does nothing. Like she like studies algorithms. She like has an MBA. Like I love data, so like we just started going back to the data. And when we found there were 5 very distinct methods of, well, what we started to see is the people that overperformed had similar tendencies and the people that underperformed had similar tendencies. And we started to break these apart and see like there are roughly 5 natural tendencies that lead to success on different platforms and in different ways of doing marketing and sales. So like no one asked that question first. The first question people usually ask is, honestly, they normally ask like, is this anything related to Clifton Strengths or what Becca Syme's doing? And Becca came to our, Becca came into our membership a couple of months ago, and she said something that I think really summed it up better than I ever could, because of course she did. She's Becca. And she said, every personality archetyping system is based on one axis, a different axis. Like it has to be on one axis because you have to judge on that axis. And so ours is specifically dealing with this, with sales and marketing success. So we talk to a lot of people that are like, I don't know if I'm this ecosystem. And we go through, and like it always comes back to how people have the most sales and marketing success for the least effort. Because what we then found after we started breaking people up is the people who were, let's say, deserts didn't actually think the stuff that like they do was marketing. And but every other arc ecosystem thought that what deserts did was marketing. And then when you went down the line, like grasslands did not think content marketing was marketing. They just like there's a thing they naturally did. Tundras didn't think live launching was marketing. There was just a thing that they enjoyed doing. And so we started saying, well, what if we just started thinking about authors as these 5 different and distinct marketing and sales success types? And what if instead of saying you're doing marketing wrong, we started saying you're doing the wrong marketing? Because the truth is, forests love community. Like I hate talking about things that are not my books or things very distinct to things that I've written. I like to write and talk to people through the work, not around the work. But forests love community. Like they love just saying, what is your favorite dragon food? Or what is your favorite like romance thing? And like they'll just talk for hours about like stuff that probably has nothing to do with their books. That drains me. And so when we started putting people into these ecosystems or these silos, like the whole of the publishing industry started to make a whole lot more sense.
Right. So, can you sort of tell us what these ecosystems are for those who haven't heard about them yet?
For sure. And you can go to authorecosystem.com and take our quiz.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. The first type is a desert. So a desert loves optimization. So if you've ever heard somebody say, I don't understand why you can't just look at tropes and write that exact outline, it's because they're a desert. Like they are uniquely qualified to be able to sort of dispassionately pull themselves out of the work and say, if I want to succeed, I have to write a book that has these 6 tropes in it. Other ecosystems really can't do that because they can't look at things as dispassionately. So these are people who are great at co-writing or journalism or working in a publishing company or being publishers, because they can say, I need somebody to write this book in this way to hit all of the tropes. They're also really unique in that they consider fans. So like we think of casual readers and then super fans generally as the people that are in our ecosystem or in our market or like people that have joined our mailing list. Deserts are very different in that they consider all fans of a genre to be fans. They don't consider them casual readers at all. So the way they service fans is by saying there are 1 million people. If I write a book that 300,000 of them like, then I have done fan service. No other ecosystem really thinks like that, but that is how they deliver their fan service and how they service their community, by trying to take them to make a book that the most amount of them will like. Actually really fascinating, because when you talk to a desert, if you don't understand that about them, you can't talk about fans in the way that like you talk about them with other ecosystems, because their understanding and like how they make money. Again, this is all about how they make money. They make their money by servicing the most amount of fans, which allows them to charge very little for that because they're trying to service tens of thousands of people. So things like KU, things like dropping their price to 99 cents, all that stuff works because they just can make money on volume. The second is Monica. Monica is a grassland. Grasslands love depth. So the way Monica makes money, or the way Monica thinks, she's trying to find a trend 2 years out and then figure out how to move the industry to that trend so that by the time the trend is there, she already owns the category. So if you can see what we've been trying to do with direct sales, she wrote 20 books about basically every platform and direct sales. And so like, who is ever going to now be able to write 20 books to catch up with her and us in the series that we wrote? I mean, I guess like an AI can do it or something, but like it will probably take a reasonable human somewhere between 18 and 24 months just to catch up where we are now. And then then they have to do all of the other stuff, the courses and the study. So if you've ever looked at someone and been like, wait, how did they own this category? Like, I didn't even see it coming. And then it just came out of left field. That's a grassland. Like, they make their money through what Monica says, putting pennies in the bank. They just keep showing up every day, putting a little bit more and gaining fans one at a time. Every post is evergreen. Everything that they do is about making more, like bringing one more person in and setting themselves apart. Third is me. I'm a Tundra. So a Tundra is a seasonal launcher. So a seasonal launcher should think of themselves like a fashion designer. So there's a fascinating Marc Jacobs masterclass where he talks about how his entire year is about creating and then building up to a launch and then having that Paris Fashion Week and then going back to creating and then having these rolling launches that like, so if you think of someone like Melanie Harlow, like, or Sky Warren, like they hit number one because they're able to bring the excitement for their launch. They're able to they're what we call trope stackers. They stack as many evergreen tropes as possible. And then their job is to get everyone to look for a very small amount of time. So they hit number one and then like they live off that until the next launch where they go up again. And if you listen to Sky, especially talking about how to launch books, like this is exactly what she does. Like she always talks about getting really high, juicing the algorithm on KU so it hits very, very high, and then low, and then slowly getting that long tail, and then doing it again. And like that is that Tundra, that is the J.A. Huss, a perfect year model where like you're trying to peak at these small places and then resting a whole lot of the rest of the time. A forest is somebody whose superpower is interconnectivity and community. So they do really, really well when somebody comes into their ecosystem at making them feel special and making them feel like they're in this new, really cool community. They've probably got like a lot of inside jokes, inside keywords, and like they are the ones that have like 100 pen names and have them all be successful because somebody comes in and then they read everything. So I think of someone like RJ Blaine when it comes to this. Like RJ Blaine has that one series that like drives tons of her sales, but she has a very, very unique style to her and her writing. Like if you like RJ Blaine, you'll like all of the rest of her work. And that's not necessarily true with every other ecosystem. Like with A Desert, just because you like one of their series doesn't mean you'll like another series, because they're going to literally completely change how they write depending on what the tropes are of that day. Whereas most of the time, someone like RJ is going to write a book. Like even if no matter what the genre is, like it's going to be an RJ Blaine book. And then finally, you have aquatics. There's very, very few aquatics in publishing because publishing, they are format agnostic. So think of someone like George Lucas, who has Star Wars as a movie, but then they also have video games and board games and books and all of that stuff. So they're expanding through all of these different formats and trying to pull different people into their universe through this commercial over here and this podcast. They're expanding through literally changing what format they are. And when you think about it, so those are the 5 ecosystems. When you think about it, if you don't understand what someone's ecosystem is, what their ecosystem is and your ecosystem, like publishing makes no sense. Like you literally can't, as a forest, talk to a desert about community, about fandom, because their understanding of it is completely wrong. Not wrong, is completely different than what you think fandom is. And you'll just be talking past each other and never get anything done. That is why a lot of forests really struggle with the KU model, because it's literally not made for them. Like, KU is the model that of figure out what's hot, write that thing, and then move to the next thing is how a desert makes money. It is not how a forest makes money. A forest makes money by making a book that's very personal to them and their community, and then activating them, kind of like Brandon Sanderson with his Kickstarter. Brandon Sanderson is a great example of a forest because he had that 100,000 person Reddit community, and one day he's just like, surprise, we're launching this thing, and like it all splintered from there, and everyone started to activate because they all love Brandon Sanderson's work. So that is a overview of the strengths. There's also weaknesses of each ecosystem, but that's kind of what we found each ecosystem succeeds at, and that leads to what kind of platforms that they succeed at as well.
So is this something that comes in time as you publish and as you do your marketing, you sort of mature into one of these ecosystems, or is this something that you're, sort of born with, essentially?
I mean, it definitely appears more as time goes on, but you're probably inclined to one of them already. So for instance, like if you love like gaming social media algorithms and finding out how to like get virality and how to like what is trending, like some people really love that stuff. I hate that stuff. If you do that, you probably would do well as a desert or as a grassland. Because what's interesting is grasslands and deserts are the two sides of the same coin. One of them hoards information and then uses it themselves. A grassland is taking that information and then sharing it with other people. And that's how they differ. If you are somebody who is like, I wrote this thing and I never want to think about it again, you probably are a tundra, because and there's very few true tundras, because a tundra is basically a sales funnel. And so usually a tundra will augment with either a grassland or a forest. Like I'm a tundra as a grassland, and I'm using a lot of grassland techniques. But there's also tundras that are forests. And so if you love talking around like stuff, like if you love just like being engaged in conversation, even like about the menial banalities of life, or like all of whatever that stuff is, like different tropes, what people read that week, all of that stuff, like you probably would do well as a forest, because that's the kind of stuff, that kind of community building that forests really resonate with. Now, you also will probably resonate with different kinds of teachers. So if you are a desert, you'll probably get a lot out of like Michael Anderle or like Mark Dawson. Like, although Mark Dawson is a grassland, as like it's hard when someone is uber successful because they often are doing a bunch of these other things. But if you want to learn like live launching, like I am great to teach you that. If you want to learn evergreen content marketing, Monica is perfect for that. Aaron Wright is perfect for Forest. Like there's all of these people that if you look at yourself and say, I want to learn doing this thing, and then you can say, oh, that is a desert technique. I need to find a desert to either do this for me or to learn from to do it. Then you kind of understand. Or you can be like, man, I really want the success of a desert. But the reason that a lot of forests really struggle is because they can't dispassionately do the things that deserts do. They can't go from one beat to the next. They can't, like, their brain doesn't work like that. Their brain and the way they have success doesn't work like that. And so a lot of forests end up making very bland books that don't resonate with anyone because they're trying to take away the thing that makes their success unique. So you probably like you probably default to one of these things. Like if your first thing when you think of like launching a book is how do I get 500 other formats of this book out there? Probably an aquatic, like probably. Um, but you can learn how to do any of these things. And in fact, the end result of what we want from this ecosystem is no matter what your ecosystem, you're going to evolve with pieces of all of these ecosystems. Either you are going to hire out things to do that, or you are going to learn how to do them yourself. So it is our hope that everyone would be able to create an ecosystem that has the strengths of each one of these pieces inside of it, but have it work for them.
Yeah, because one of my questions was once I have I've taken the test and the quiz and I've discovered I am one particular type of ecosystem. What do I do then? Because I'm obviously conscious that I've got these traits, and you said, for example, Monica could be a great teacher. How do I go and find? Because a lot of the teachers or a lot of the people I follow won't know this. So what is your logical next step, do you think, after you've essentially come to the conclusion that you are a forest, for example?
Okay, so you're a forest, and there's basically three. Usually, the first step is going from unhealthy to healthy. So when you think of a forest, like there's a lot of things that a healthy forest does. Just an actual forest, not like a human who's a forest. They are interconnecting they live in an interconnected root system. Like they are strong when they are together, and they are very protective when things are inside of them. Like they're protective of the nature that lives inside of them. Like they have a canopy to make things like to cool things off. Like they are and when someone is unhealthy, they're usually trying to be another ecosystem. Not to pick on forests and deserts, but most unsuccessful forests are trying to be deserts or another ecosystem. And they just aren't. The key feature of a forest is that they think they are every other ecosystem. And so a quick test, because this is about marketing and sales success, is if you try to write a book that is to market, are you right? Because if you're not right, you can't be a desert. Like you can't. Like that's their thing. Like that's how they have marketing and sales success. If you're a grassland, if you think you're a grassland, if you pick a trend, does that trend come true? If not, you can't be a grassland. Like that's the thing. Like that's their thing. Um, and so usually people then are like, oh, well, yes, I'm a forest. Like that's what with Enneagrams, I find this too. Like the easiest way to find your Enneagram type is to find out what you don't do in stress and what you do in stress. And like just by eliminating it, you kind of figure that out. So first step is saying, oh, I'm a forest. I've been trying to be a desert this whole time. And then to look and see what does a successful forest do, and it's probably the things that your natural tendency does. So, for instance, writing series that are highly interconnected is one, because you want people to be able to read across all of your series when you are they want them to read across as many series as they can, because like you're going to have a big disparate like scope of what you write. The second thing is you probably want to double down on community. So Wide for the Win is moved off Facebook into their own circle community. And so owning the community feature of it, figuring out how to talk better around the work to get people excited about your work, and how to really figure out what is unique about you and your writing, because those are going to be the hallmarks of your work. And now once you know that those are the things you're looking for, you can start looking for like someone like Aaron is clear. Aaron Wright is clearly a forest. Like you just look at them and you're like, oh, well, yeah, like they're all about community. They're all about like interconnectivity. They're all about like building everything up. And as like one becomes successful, we all become successful. And you can see that in both her nonfiction and fiction writing. And so it's once you know what the strength of each one is, it makes it easier for you to when you come in contact with someone to know if they are going to be a good guide for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to ask you a few names that a lot of the attendees will surely know, and see what kind of ecosystem they are. So, someone like Joanna Penn, what would you say?
She's a grassland. I mean, if she's not a grassland, I don't know. I don't know a grassland. She goes deep. You know, when she does when she moved into AI, she didn't just like dip her toe in. She did like 500 episodes about AI. Like she did, she started a thing, the AI assisted artist and author. Like she by the time like anyone else could catch up to her, she was one of the voices that you start listening to on AI. So, and she's been doing it for a long time, and you can hear her over years talking about the improvements of AI and what was happening. So I would peg Joanna as absolutely a grassland.
Okay, cool. Second name is Mark Dawson.
So the way that Mark Dawson teaches is a desert. I think he's a desert overall, but what's very interesting about Mark is he had success doing the grassland strategy, which is like going deep on one series. But then he went really all in on optimizing ads. And so whether he is a grassland or a desert, the way that they teach is very, very, very desert.
Nice. And third name, I'll let you pick someone that you'd like to share their ecosystem. Who do you think?
Okay. Well, I've been talking. I'll do Claire Taylor. Claire is absolutely Claire Taylor. You can see is a forest because she has about 300 pen names, but all of them sound exactly like Claire. Like every book that Claire ever puts out sounds just like Claire. And I say this with like, I love Claire's work. So like and when she writes off of her Claire-edness, like it seems to not do as well. Or she doesn't seem to be as like excited about it, because that's really what you can demonstrate with a forest is like when they're excited, their audience gets excited.
Nice. And have you ever spoken to authors and said, look, by looking at what you do, you are a desert, for example, and they sort of had a epiphany and said, oh my God, you're right. How could I have never seen this before? Has it ever happened, or is just
all the time? Like all the time.
Nice.
All the time, especially with forests. Like the number one thing that we see are forests who have been trying to run either grassland or desert businesses. And they're like, I can't believe I never saw this before. There are a lot of other people who we've talked to who have had success, who have like had an epiphany. But in general, the ones that have the biggest revelations are forests who've been trying to live as other ecosystems.
Did you find that is there a particular type that is struggling in this day and age, like now with the whole, with the way things are in publishing now? Do you think there's a specific ecosystem that's struggling more than others, or not?
Okay, I've been picking on forests, so I'm going to stop picking on them because, like, in fairness, with the way the future of publishing is moving, it is geared towards forest success because it's all about like direct sales, building relationships, building super fans, and the people that don't do that as well are deserts. Like deserts struggle because the books that tend to do well with a mass market or easily consumable are not the ones that tend to get many super fans. Now, some deserts that have built a mailing list over years and have just been super successful end up having 10, 20, 30,000 people in their audience. But what we have found is the ones that seriously underperform on Kickstarter are almost all using deserts strategies that they've picked up on KU, or are deserts who don't have an audience because they don't understand the difference between casual reader and superfan.
Is it, do you think, in any way possible, if things change a lot in the next, few years, to pivot and to try to adapt by not trying to be another ecosystem, because like we said, it's mostly in you already, but is it at all possible to adapt, giving this whole, author ecosystem system?
Absolutely. So I will tell you something that I heard a long time ago, which is I asked, I'm just going to say, I asked Becca, I said, because I'm a big fan of Clifton Strengths and Enneagrams. And when she released the first talks of her author success archetypes, I said, this really tends to, if you don't know anything about Enneagrams, there's like 9 steps to be between healthy and unhealthy. And I asked her, I was like, Becca, this seems to be like pegged at a 4, which is like a kind of middling, like average health person in an Enneagram. So can you change that? And she said, oh yeah, you can change it. But 97% of people, she didn't actually say 97%. I later found out that 97% of people don't actually change. So you absolutely can change. I think that I have moved. There's a post on my Substack, which is all about how I evolved through the process of multiple things. But this is not Myers-Briggs. The thing I dislike about Myers-Briggs, and I think they've gotten a lot better at it over the years, but people would say, well, I can't do anything about it. I'm an I. Like, I'm an introvert. So, like, I guess I'll never go outside again. Like, they would use it as an excuse to be like, oh, well, I'm a jerk, but it's because I'm a J, or whatever the thing is. Or, oh, I'm sloppy because I'm a P. Like, and what I think you can do. So a lot of people are like, oh, so I'm a force, I'm just a force. It's like, no. One, you absolutely can change. Like, once you see that the reason that deserts have success is because they can almost disassociate between the work and and their emotions, and write something that, and take pride in the work. I actually am very, very jealous of that, because I am too vain to take pride in just the work. I need people to know that I did it, which is why like they're such good ghostwriters, because they're like, oh, my interest is in writing, just writing. Like, I just want to do the work. Journalists, same thing, like beat writers, they can just dispassionately say, oh, like, this is the story. I'm going to write the story, and it does not matter like how I want to write it. This is how you want to write it. So if you can make that like, if you want to start studying data more or whatever, and you can become like a great desert, or a great grassland, or generally what tends to happen is forests, aquatics, and grasslands, when they evolve, should immediately become tundras, should immediately bring in tundra, because it's so, for grasslands, they're doing these penny in the bank things, building over time, and they're usually not making that much money month over month. So like, when they want a big influx of cash, they want to do a big course, they want to do something really strong to like cement their legacy. Someone like Jennifer Hilt did this with her Kickstarter for the Tropothesaurus. Like, she stood up a tree because she used this tundra strategy, because she had built a big audience and a ton of goodwill. For forests, they're like, well, I'm going to build, it's going to take me forever to build a community. And you're like, aha, unless you have a big shade tree, unless you can stand up something really strong that has a lot of success that can bring people into the rest of your community. And so like a tundra strategies are great for that. For aquatic, it costs a lot of money to do a lot of different formats. So like, they usually don't have they need to infiltrate a lot of different communities basically at once, and they need a lot of funds for that. So like, bringing in these tactics to like bring money in so that they can get all of these different formats up and running for their universe is helpful. Deserts, however, should not do that. Like, what deserts tend to be really good at is either becoming a grassland. So they're like, here's all of the strategies that like have worked for me over a long period of time. Now I'm going to dump this data to you. Like, because it's like I've already taken all of the benefit from it. So someone like in a different way, like Dave Chesson is a desert. Like, he does Kindlepreneur, he does publish, like all of the stuff is just like he's a desert who like is also a grassland. Or they want to become aquatics because they understand that they can just take the data that they've accumulated in publishing and they can kind of figure out how to make the same data or like their own data streams work for different formats. So there are tons of not only evolution paths, but also you can just say, I don't want to be a desert. I want to be a grassland, or I don't want to be a grassland. I want to be an aquatic, and like just do it. But you have to understand how an aquatic makes money and how they have success. Otherwise, you're just going to take your grassland strategies and try to mold them onto an aquatic, and you will fail. So it's not that forests can't be deserts. It's that they try to map their forestiness onto desertiness, and they fail in that respect.
Right. So I think I know the answer to this, but what if we reverse everything and we say, I haven't even written a book, but my goal is to be, at least, fairly successful with my books. I want to, make $1,000 a month. Can this system be a map that guides you towards what to do, or is it too early to start looking at it even before you're at?
So my question back to you is, what does success mean? Like $1,000 a month doing what actions? Because you can make $1,000 a month on Substack. You can make $1,000 a month on Patreon, on Amazon, Wide, on Kickstarter. Like, do you feel better? Like, for instance, I do a lot of seasonal releases, so I'll do like 4 books in one series together once a year. Like, does that are you better with that, or do you really want are you better dribbling content out over time, like a grassland does? And so there are a lot of people who say, like, I am unsuccessful, and I'm like, I don't know, I made like 180 grand last year. Like, that's pretty good, I think. But like, none of it's on Amazon. Like, you can, if you look at my ranking on Amazon, it's like in the millions. Like, I don't even have any of my fiction novels on Amazon at all. Like, they're not on any retailers. They're on my website and when I do a Kickstarter alone. And people will be like, wow, that's weird. But I'm like, I make money at conventions. I make money on Kickstarter. I make money through Substack. Like, I make money on courses. I make money in all sorts of ways. And that's good. That works for me. Would I love to just be able to hit launch and then run a bunch of Amazon ads and make 200 grand? Like, sure, that would probably like be easier, but I think I would get bored. I have friends that say, I literally don't ever want to interact with a human being. I just want to write my book and then figure out my keywords and then slam it through. And I'm like, that's also good. Like, that's a different way to make $1,000 a month. So the question is, how do you want to make it? And usually you'll be able to see from the 5 things I labeled out, which one is most appealing to you. If it's optimizations, like, you should like go and figure out how to do the desertiest, go do a deep dive, spend the next month looking at what's working, get Publisher Rocket, get KDP Spy, get download Klytics, like all of that stuff is going to be like, go talk to Ricardo, like go do all of the stuff that's like going to get you the desertiness. Go like talk to Michael Anderle and like Craig Martell and all of the people that like have built this stuff up over the years. Figure out what James Patterson's doing, like all of that, and then really just in a couple of months, you'll probably be like, I get it. I understand how to look at this model and make the correct choices. Because if nothing else for a desert, you must make the right choice because you are working on a very small time horizon. You're saying this is the trend now. Within a month, that book has to be out and like ready to go. And like in order to, and then you have to keep basically doing that month after month after month after month after month to keep making your money. And some people like, Sean McGuire can write 100,000 words a month and I'd make $13,000 on Patreon. I've tried to do that and I burnt out twice now doing that. So if you see like what Monica's doing or Jennifer or George R. R. Martin, or if you just want to make a huge world, like figure out how to become a great grassland. If you just want to like launch a book and then do the next thing and the next thing, and like you have a short memory and you just want to like maximize each launch, like probably a Tundra would be working on. Although I would say you need a flywheel of either a forest or a grassland, because otherwise you're just a straight funnel that like once everything's done, like there's nothing for them to do. Same thing with a forest. Like if you love community, like indie fantasy addicts, I don't know if you know that Facebook group, like that is just forest central. Like they just every day are like, what is your favorite food from like a fantasy book? Like what is your favorite dragon? Like people are just posting the books that they read that have nothing to do with other people, and like they love that stuff there, and like it works for them.
Yeah.
If you want to do aquatics, it's probably the hardest to get going because there's the biggest financial return. But I would be like, well, if I want to make this into 100 formats, maybe a book like. They are brand managers. So like maybe a book's not the right first move. Maybe it's a board game or a RPG. And we've talked to a lot of people in publishing who've been like, I just want to be a brand manager for my work. I don't even want to write the books. I just want to like get people expanding out my world. And like, I want to be the navigator of this world. And like, that's a huge, aside from the thing I said about Forest, probably the biggest revelation that people have is where they're like, wait, I don't have to write these books. Someone else can write them and I can just manage the brand and expand out in the way that I want to. And obviously doing that like takes a lot more money. So it's a lot harder, but also you can move a lot faster because you could put out 10 books in the time I can write one because you have 10 people working on it. And what's interesting also is when you're doing things like making an anthology or writing putting together a publishing slate, you can then look at the ecosystems as a way to develop a really, really good basis of your public of what you're going to put out in the next year. Like you probably want a desert working on something every 3 months, a different, like either the same desert or a different desert, so you can keep hopping on the trends. But desert books tend to not have that much longevity because they're written specifically to those trends to take advantage of them. So you also want somebody who can take advantage of all the excitement of evergreen tropes. Like you want at least one Tundra, probably two. You want definitely forests who have amazing communities and love community building. And you probably want at least one aquatic who is going to work on different formats. And then you probably want a grassland to manage your shared world. Like you probably want a grassland who's going to be able to manage it all. And like you want them to write a book that's like a year out or 2 years out because they're checking on the trend that's happening in the future. And so if you can figure out these ecosystems, it doesn't only work for your own business, but it works for any of the marketing things that you might be considering doing down the road as well with groups.
Fantastic. So one very last question. How did you come up with the names of the various ecosystems?
Oh, there are 5. So what we did was we said there can't be 9 because like that's Enneagrams. There can't be 4 because like that's Becca's success archetypes. And there just so happened to be 5 ecosystems, and they pretty well mapped like what we saw. So for instance, deserts. So we consider water to be like the equalize like money. So in a desert ecosystem, people succeed by animals succeed by skittering around to find shade, i.e., like the thing that is going to protect them and like give them money, and then plants suck up resources, and then they deserts work in very like tight grainy windows, and you have to be able to survive between them and be very good at being adaptable and optimizing your conditions for survival. A grassland succeeds by having very few, like it does not rain a lot in a grassland, so there can't be very many trees. So the problem with grasslands is they try to stand up 100 trees or they try to stand up 0 trees. And a grassland needs at least 1 tree. Like it needs, so you need to build at least one thing that you're building your career around, and then you need a lot of posts to how grasslands work is the grassland the actual grass protects it, like it's a fire prevention, so it protects the trees. So all of your posts are protection around your subject, your topic, which is the thing you're trying to stand up. Tundras are seasonal launchers, and tundras are usually only fertile for one small season a year. So a forest is very interconnected. When one part of the forest is having problems, the rest of the forest can move nutrients to it. It's very robust. It takes a long time to grow. And then I think the one thing that is that I would bring up from the negatives of a forest is that forests are very imposing to people who are not inside of them. And so forests need to really look at how to make themselves more encouraging or more open to people who are not in that forest, because forests can look imposing. Yeah. Yes, but there's a lot of rain in a forest, so there's a lot of potential money and opportunity to soak up. And then finally, aquatic, there's money everywhere, and their problem is like they are zipping around trying to find everything and trying to make everything happen at the same time instead of having some focus and saying, there are audiences everywhere. There's money everywhere. How do I maximize this? How do I make a coral? Like, how do I make a reef that is going to support me while I'm trying to figure out all of this other stuff?
That's great. Absolutely fascinating. And I encourage everyone to go take the test. I will as well, and let us know what your archetype is. So, Russell, thanks ever so much for being a guest once again. Been great to have you, and I'm sure you've really given many people a lot of aha moments here. So looking forward to our next session together.
I look forward to it as well. And also, if you go to authореcosystems.substack.com, you can see a bunch of we're constantly putting out we're putting out new ways to use the ecosystems as we find them.
It's great. Yeah, I follow it, and it's very in-depth. So definitely worth having a look. Thanks again, Russell, and I'll see everyone in the next session.